what happens when you're the point man for U.S. foreign policy in Iraq, in Syria, and in Turkey under 3 presidents during 3 wars, facing leaders like Erdogan and Putin? Well, it's Ambassador James Jeffrey here to talk about it because he's lived it and he's wrote about it, and you can read it in his excellent book called Middle East Crises, Expeditionary Diplomacy with the Bush, Obama, and Trump teams. And Mr. Jeff reveals the behind-the-scenes chaos, diplomacy, and danger that happened. We're talking about war zone diplomacy, American leadership, and it's a nice peek into our recent history. So we're here to have this fun conversation with Mr. James Franklin Jeffrey himself. So, Mr. James Franklin Jeffrey, how the heck are you today?
I'm fine, and thanks for doing the podcast, and thanks for focusing on the book. I'm encouraging anybody and everybody who wants the answers to these questions, not so much to listen just to this podcast, but to go out and read the book. The book captures several points. First, and most importantly, what we do abroad, be we soldiers, and I've been a soldier, be we diplomats, and I've been a diplomat, or be we in the business world, we are advancing American interests, peace, security, prosperity, and political freedom for not only Americans, but for people around the world. That's the core message of my or almost any other American diplomat's pitch for his or her experiences over the past 80 or 90 years, frankly.
Okay, so we need to get educated. We need to know about this. It's such a mess. So why is this still happening? Why can't we all just get along?
Well, national interests can be adjusted and maintained in some kind of international balance. All in all, in the world, we have succeeded since World War II. Look at the terrible wars between 1914 and 1945, ending in August 1945 with 2 atomic bomb attacks. We've seen nothing like that in the world since. We have been able, not just we Americans, but we've played a leading role, but people around the world have been able to manage the tendency of states and leaders to go to war in all, a relatively positive way. Now, there's one big exception. That, for many reasons, is the Middle East. Thus, we've had to take a much edgier, much more risky approach to try to calm wars, to try to balance opposing ethnic, religious, and other struggles, and to ensure that the people of the region have at least a vision for how they can get out of this. We're not there yet, but frankly, we've come close, particularly in the last few years. That's beyond the coverage of this book. But what I would say is, for the first 20 years of this century, I was involved with 3 presidents who were setting up the basic prerequisites for what we're now seeing with the second Trump administration, with the defeat of Iran, with the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria. This is all based upon what we were doing over those 20 years.
Very nice. So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and you hope that with more communication and just like seeing that it can be done, right? All these other countries have figured out peace talks and figured out this term balance that you mentioned. So we just hope that the rest can. And so what is it that you saw? You served under 3 presidents. What was your position? What did you have to deal with?
Sure. Well, I started the 21st century in 2000 in Turkey as the number 2, where our main focus was on containing Saddam Hussein to our south and helping the Turks with the fight against the PKK terrorist organization. Then I went to Albania, and a little bit of a diversion from the Middle East, but the Balkans, where Albania is, frankly, has many of the same problems, many of the same conflicts. But I was pulled out of there and sent to Iraq in 2004 to bridge the transition from the military-led Coalition Provisional Authority under Ambassador Jerry Bremer to our embassy under John Negroponte. Again, I was the number two. But after some 8 months with Negroponte, he left to become the first director of national intelligence back in Washington. So I became the acting ambassador, what we call the chargé, and was dealing every week directly with President Bush. I then came back to Washington, worked more on Iraq, worked for Bush as the deputy national security advisor with him every day, then went off to Turkey as the ambassador, then went off to Iraq as the ambassador, then retired. I was brought back in by Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State in the Trump administration, to do two things. First, to be the Syria envoy. Syria was in the midst of a terrible civil war that was impacting the whole region. And second, be the special envoy for the coalition to defeat the Islamic State, which was this spin-off of al-Qaeda active in Syria and Iraq. And that took me to 2020. So I was involved in most of the major efforts by the United States and our partners and allies throughout the region to push back on Iran and to defeat terrorism throughout that period.
Very nice. So you're very valuable, and you've seen some things, and you've put in a lot of help, assistance. And what do you think made you keep getting called back? Like, what do you think in particular about the value that you provide is so valuable?
Several things. First of all, I was in the military for 7 years, and I had some very good military experiences. So I understood the link between diplomacy and military force. That's very important. Secondly, between the military and a master's degree in business administration, I had managerial skills. For example, when I was the ambassador in Iraq in 2011, I had 16,000 people under me and 50 aircraft. So you had to have a certain amount of managerial experience and not be worried about big sums, big people, big responsibilities, and big dangers, and I could handle that. But lastly, I got along with these presidents. With Trump indirectly, because it was mainly through Mike Pompeo, but with President Obama and President Bush, it was a personal relationship. And I have to say, and this is good for the American people, it's what presidents should do. Presidents listen to their commanding generals and admirals and their ambassadors in the field when the stuff hits the fan. You're up there on the screen in the National Security Council meetings and what they call the tank in the White House, and the president is talking to you directly, and he's exposing his own concerns. They're human beings like the rest of us. They're in a risk-heavy environment. They don't know what to do. They have some ideas, and they turn to us. We don't make the decisions. That's a very important point. Presidents make all the hard decisions. But we can give them advice, and most importantly, we can give them confidence that we can carry out whatever they decide.
Very nice. So, so you say that you are not the one to make decisions, but you're the one to give advice. And sometimes when you're speaking with a very important window, there's this limited time window, right? There's a lot that might go wrong. So as far as the advice that you gave, do you have any regrets? Is there anything you think you might do better or do all over again?
Well, certainly at one point, I advised President Bush. I was an acting national security advisor, so I was working directly with him, not to fly Georgian troops from Iraq back to Georgia in 2008 when the Russians invaded that country. We were afraid this would be World War III. We didn't want to create a serious incident. And having thousands of Georgian troops reinforcing the collapsing Georgian front flown into Georgia by American military transport aircraft, that to me was too risky. And I told that to the president. And he looked at me and said, I promised the president of Georgia that if he gave us troops to fight with us in Iraq and he needed them, I would send them back. I will not break my promise. Now, as president, he was taking a risk with 300 million plus Americans. But as a man of his word, he thought he was doing the right thing. And looking back, those Georgian troops held the line, stopped the Russians from overrunning the capital, and allowed us, through the French, to eventually negotiate a ceasefire and actually get a withdrawal of Russian troops, something we'd like to do now with Ukraine. So President Bush, in a way, was right, and I was wrong. But that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay to be wrong, right? It's data, it's feedback. You can proceed forward in a better way. And you mentioned a couple of times now about like some bad paths, bad decisions might get us on the path to World War III, and it's scary, right? Even you look back at like Cuban Missile Crisis, or there was the time in 1983 where the guy saw the blips on the radars and
The Russians did, yeah.
defied orders, and so it's terrifying. And so, is it true? Like, are we kind of every now and then on the brink of World War III?
There are anyone who studies how the killing of one Austrian aristocrat, a crown prince, and his wife in Sarajevo, a city that can hardly be found on the map, and it wasn't even a country, a province at the time, Bosnia-Herzegovina, in the middle of the Balkans. I cannot imagine why that led to a 4-year war with 20 million people killed. It was a set of checks and balances to any aggression. Remember, Europe hadn't seen a major war in 99 years, since 1815, the end of Napoleon. And they had checks and balances in place to handle these kind of things. But in the end, those checks and balances all failed, like a set of dominoes knocking down one after the other. And that's our job as diplomats, as the people in the field who are watching things go back and forth, and immediately, and you don't have much time, deciding we have to act. We stopped, for example, in 2004, the Iraqi army and the American support trying to take down the Golden Mosque, one of the greatest sanctuaries in Shia Islam, because a terrorist leader, Muqtada al-Sadr, had his forces occupying it. Instead, we saw in the middle of the night an opportunity to bring in the greatest Shia leader, religious leader in Iraq, Grand Ayatollah Sistani, to organize what he called a million-man march, move to Najaf, where this all was happening, and talk these people into giving up the Golden Mosque. But that was a decision taken within minutes in the middle of the night. You don't have advisors. You don't have time to check with Washington. You just act. And in the back of all of our minds is what happened in Sarajevo in 1914.
Right, just that one little spark set off a complete wildfire, and it's a scary place to be. And so it seems like you've got a lot figured out, and people keep needing you, they keep bringing you back. But I mean, it requires you to be on the ball, right, and manage your stress and have emotional intelligence. And so, do you think is there anything to maybe your habits or routines that contribute to your success?
One, get a lot of exercise, get a lot of sleep. Don't eat too much. Don't drink too much. And two, stress comes from not the amount of work you have, or the difficulty of the decisions, but whether you believe you're not capable of doing the job, or, and it's bad when it's both, but it can be either or, you believe that your bosses don't think you're capable of doing the job. That for me is stress, and I've had that. In these jobs I had over the last 20 plus years, however difficult, I knew that my bosses, including those three presidents, had confidence in me. They would probably follow most of the time what I would suggest. I gave an example of when Bush didn't, he was right, but most of the time I called the shots pretty well. And you're so busy. That's you see this in actual combat when people are shooting at you or shelling you, but you also see this in these diplomatic situations, even if you're not personally in danger. You don't have time to contemplate, well, could this be the start of another war? Am I going to get my whole country in trouble? Am I going to lead to the Benghazi incident that was so damaging to President Obama, or the Tehran embassy takeover that ended the Carter administration. I mean, as a diplomat in the field, believe me, your ability to screw up the entire United States and end president is pretty significant, particularly if you're in charge of an embassy that could go down in flames. So you think, wow, how do you handle that? The answer is just like you handle all of the people who are listening to this podcast, your decisions of any consequence in your daily lives. You rationally look at the options. You quickly review the situation. You then compare and contrast the alternative ways forward. You make a decision, and most importantly, you communicate that decision to the people who need to know, and you execute it vigorously and confidently.
Very nice. After this, I'm going to have to go back and take a clip of that and get it transcribed and make it into a poster because I love that 4 or 5 step process there. If you look at your options, you weigh those pros and cons, you communicate what you want to do, and you make it sound so simple because it can be, right? If we don't let our problems overwhelm us, as you're saying, you have the belief in yourself, and then you have others with that belief in you. We can break these problems down no matter if they're world changing or they're just in our own business or in our own personal lives. And you have the goods, you have the receipts, right? You say you have your business experience and your military experience and your ambassadorial experience, and you've seen so much. But what do you think is maybe misunderstood today about American foreign policy in the Middle East?
Well, in the Middle East and any place else, however powerful we are, by far the most powerful military. However rich our country, we have by far the most productive, the richest, at least for the moment, and certainly the most innovative country, society, and technology in the world. There's only so much you can do uh, with other countries when it involves how they want to live their lives, what they see their interests to be, and how to pursue them. You only make differences at the margins. That has to be good enough, and the changes at the margins add up in the long term, either to a peaceful, prosperous world or to a world that's descending into another 1914. And it's not just, of course, me out there, it's me and 50 other people at any given time advising the president, trying to execute the president's decisions, the president's desires. And it's an iterative process. We pass our information back, we suggest changes, and they make the decisions.
Okay, so you can only do what you can on those margins, and that's so true with people as it is in countries, isn't it? If you have that stubborn family member, friend relationship, and that you can't force people to do anything, but when you say, "Hey, well, one country could end the world, or one country could escalate some huge conflict," I mean, it's frustrating to see, right? When you see this craziness happening with North Korea or with Israel and all these other countries, it's just like you take your pick, right? There's just some real just instability happening out there. But luckily, we can get a handle on what we can control and how we can scratch that itch of the historical and the political curiosity. And then it's always fun to see things from a different perspective, isn't it, Mr. James Franklin Jeffrey, to like read someone's biography and say, oh my gosh, I'm getting into his head and seeing how he dealt with this or that situation. And so we want to sell some books. We want to send people to get this excellent book called Middle East Crises, Expeditionary Diplomacy with the Bush, Obama, and Trump teams. And as we said at the beginning, we're here to get people excited, give them a taste so they want to go and check out the book. But you're the star of the show here, right? You're the one who's bringing us all these interesting factoids and ideas. So what am I missing here in this conversation that we're having? What's the question that I should be asking you? I just don't know what to ask you.
What's the quote I want to leave you all with? And I'm going to cheat and give you two. The first is George Bush used to say, I don't do base runs, I do home runs. I beg to differ. You try to do home runs in foreign policy, you probably will fail. You do base runs, and that's how you win games, by lots of base runs and walks and that kind of thing. You make yardage very slowly. The other thing is from the Jack Nicholson Marine Colonel character and A Few Good Men, you can't deal with the truth. That's the problem. It's a messy, bloody, dangerous world out there, full of good people who want to live just like we want to live, but in circumstances that do not allow them to do that, and sometimes lead them to stray from the path of decency and the path of peace. And you have to work with what you've got and try, again, base runs, not home runs, to make it on the margins better. If at the end of the day you believe the situation is better when you go to bed and when you got up, you've had a good day in American diplomacy.
Very good. So there's many layers to this, right? We can find out about American diplomacy directly and also pick up these tidbits of life advice, right? Like there's the general that teaches people to make their bed first thing in the morning. Well, I like you better, right? I like the information you've given us better. And we should check out this book called
Admiral
Middle East.
McRaven, former head of the Joint Special Operations Command and a battle buddy of mine.
Oh, very nice. So you get around, right? You're in a nice circle of amazing people. And if you want to get a peek into what it's all about, this is both a memoir and an analysis. It's called Middle East Crises. It's an essential read for anyone interested in the realities of diplomacy, war, and American power in one of the world's most complex regions. It's by Mr. James Franklin Jeffrey, a veteran American diplomat, and he offers a compelling first-hand account of U.S. foreign policy and crisis management in the Middle East from 2004 to 2020. So go to Amazon, do it right now, search Middle East Crises, and find the one by Mr. James Franklin Jeffrey. Hopefully it's number one at the top of the search results, and check it out. You'll be amazed, you'll be entertained, and you'll figure out a better way of thinking and making decisions and having some success. It's strategies, secrets, and solutions from the former U.S. ambassador and special envoy. So check it out. It's Middle East Crises, Expeditionary Diplomacy with the Bush, Obama, and Trump teams by Mr. James Franklin Jeffrey. Thanks so much, Mr. James Jeffrey, for showing up, stopping by, and being a good podcasting partner and helping us out in life and business and decision-making advice. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much for having me today.